been having. And it was at that moment that I completely ran out of battery power. I was so upset. I had climbed up to the top of a ridge, and this one was about twice as high as the previous ridge that I shot from. And the view of the 12,000 foot peaks across the plateau was phenomenal, and I really wanted to share it with you. But that's the way it goes. However, since I had, after the first few days, realized that I had a limited amount of battery power and a limited amount of tape, I started condensing my entries into just a few minutes, and I started practicing them before I shot, and so as a result I have that day's entry memorized. So this is how it would have gone. Day 10. Yesterday afternoon I was having some resistance about being up here. I was taking my shower and the water was lukewarm and the wind had picked up and the temperature had dropped, and I was sitting there cold and shivering in the shade, and I was tired and sore and cold, and I just wanted to go home. Plus, on top of that, I started seeing some nasty looking clouds coming in from the west. And this is not what you want to see, because normally if it's just going to be a thunderstorm, it's going to form over the middle of the Sierras east of me, and then it would come over to the west side where I was. But these were coming in from the west, and it was cold. And this suggested to me that whatever it was might have been coming in off of the Pacific Ocean, which is bad news, because it was late in the season and fall was definitely on its way, and I was afraid I was going to get snowed in, I was going to be trapped, and people were going to forget about me, and I was going to starve to death, and you know, all that kind of stuff. So I dried off, and thankfully as the sun went down, the clouds dissipated and the breeze subsided a little bit, and I felt a little better. I went and made myself a nice big cheery fire and a hot meal, and I went to bed satisfied. However, during the night I had intense, strange dreams, which isn't unusual because I frequently have strange, intense dreams when I'm in the mountains, especially when I've been by myself in the wilderness like that. But during one of these dreams, I was being told by some being, some entity, and it was very strange. I don't quite remember it, but the being was predicting that something was going to happen to me right now, and as soon as he said the word now, he didn't even finish the word, all of a sudden I was woken up by the sound of 3 loud, distinct taps on the side of my tent. Pop, 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 right above my head. And my first reaction was to make some noise, to yell, and to hit the side of the tent, because if it's an animal and they've got their nose up to the tent or something, usually if you just make some noise and if you're lucky enough to hit them, that will scare them away, even if it's a bear. So I tried doing that, but because it had been so cold, I had cinched up my mummy bag so that it was the only thing sticking out was my nose, and my arms were pinned to my side, and so as a result the only thing I could do was sort of flop my feet up and down like a fish and go. Now if you have somebody in camp with you, another human being, even if they're not in the same tent with you, but something like that wakes you up in the middle of the night, just the fact that there's another human being around will tend to ground you and help you reel in your imagination and you know, get your sense of reality sort of back to normal. But when you've been alone for 10 days and there's been no moon and you are woken up in the middle of the night right after some strange being in a dream tells you that something's right about to happen to you at that moment, it's pretty difficult not to think that there might actually be something outside that tent waiting for you. So I really had to employ some mental discipline and kind of reel in my imagination and tell myself that it was probably just some pine cones, it was just a coincidence, you know, it was just a dream, go back to sleep. I was finally able to go back to sleep. But in the morning when I woke up, I had feelings of intense euphoria on all levels, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Better than any drug that I could imagine. And I had this physical feeling of cleansing, and my body felt really light, and my mind felt really light and focused. And my meditations that morning were very deep and very powerful and felt very effective. And it reminded me of the Native American vision quest, when somebody would go out into the forest alone on purpose and stay out there until they had some kind of vision or experience, usually of their spirit guide, that would lead them to their identity, their role, their true sense of self, their power.